So, Robert Nelson the fifth, is that correct?
Yep, that's correct.
Robert Nelson the fifth. Thank you so much for joining me on Carbon Convos. And just let people know Robert's in his car because we had a storm here in St. Louis and a tree was knocked down and he's out of electricity. So he was still kind enough to sit with me today and talk about Financial Literacy Month. April is Financial Literacy Month. So Robert works at an organization here in St. Louis called Prosperity Connection. And essentially, you all help people get their money right.
Yep. So I can go into detail. So what we do is we help people achieve their financial goals. We do it in a few different facets. We have financial classes we teach. We have credit reviews that are 30-minute reviews of your credit report, and we give you a brief action plan. And then we have one-on-one financial coaching, which is a long-term commitment that you meet with a financial coach, and they walk you through your financial journey of whatever your goal is, purchasing a house, or purchasing a car, or just not living paycheck to paycheck every month.
Yeah, yeah, that's awesome. And I'm actually thinking about because we actually work in the same building, so I'm thinking about going upstairs one day, sitting down with someone.
Yeah.
And when you say you do like a 30-minute credit check, it's a soft pull, so it does not affect your credit.
Absolutely. So all of our credit pulls are soft pull, whether you do financial coaching or you do a credit review. So it will not impact your credit. We also have the capability of doing a tri-merge pull, which is a pull that mortgage companies do to see if you qualify for a mortgage. And we do those as a soft pull as well. We only
Okay.
reserve those for our home buying clients because obviously if you're not buying a home, then you won't be getting a tri-merge.
Because I learned recently that the credit that is used to determine what you would pay for a car or like what interest or whatever, what your loan would be, is different from a mortgage loan. They look at different scores for that.
Absolutely. So there are tons of different types of credit score. That's one of the things that make credit so difficult.
Yeah.
I almost compare it to like an iPhone. So like if somebody says, "Oh, what kind of phone do you have?" And you say iPhone, that's not enough because
Right.
typically the very next question is going to be which one? Because which one matters. If you have an
Right.
iPhone 7, it's like, ooh, that's super outdated. Yours probably can't do some of these features. But if you're like, oh, I got the latest version of, I don't know what iPhones right now, 14, 15, I don't know. But you got the latest version that's very telling. That's the
Yeah.
exact same thing with credit. So you have the three different credit bureaus, but then of those credit bureaus, they have multiple different versions of
Yeah.
the FICO score, and then they have multiple types of that version of the FICO score. So
I
you
don't
get,
think a lot of people know that. I don't think a lot of people, it's not just your FICO score. There's different kinds.
yeah.
Interesting.
So
Wow.
it's a big thing, especially for credit. So, but that's one of the things we take into account when we're looking at financial goals because we ask folks those things of, are you trying to purchase a home or trying to purchase a car? Because that's going to kind of change what your credit is going to look like when we pull it.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So when people come to you, what would you say are the top three issues they're concerned about?
Right now, top three, I would say first in this economy is budgeting. It's funny because about a year, 2 years ago, it was home buying. Everybody wanted to do home buying. But now home buying has slowed down a lot. And most people that sign up for our services are looking for help with budgeting.
Yeah.
And so that's number one. Number two, I would say is probably home buying in itself. And number three is man, let's say savings. I think saving, or even I would say generational wealth, or right now, wealth is a hot topic. So a lot of folks are interested in investing and things of that nature as well.
Okay. Do you all help people learn how to invest?
Yes. So we are not investment advisors or stock brokers. So we cannot give out investment advice. What we more so do is help people understand when they're ready to start investing.
Okay.
Because it's such a hot topic right now, it's the attractive thing. So everybody wants to do it no matter where they are in their financial journey. And they think, oh, if I start doing it, that's how I'm gonna make my $1,000,000. But once we start to ask some questions and we determine, well, that might not be the best place to start right now.
Right. Yeah.
So for instance, we always say make sure your basics are covered before you start investing.
Yeah. Your
So
basic.
do you have emergency savings? Do you have uh your budget in order, that you're budgeting correctly? Because if you don't have those things, what's going to happen is you start investing, but when you have to pull those investments out, they actually charge you more depending on the investment instrument. Then you may have to pay taxes as
Right.
well. So it's not something that you want to have to dip into often. And typically when we don't have savings, investments are one of the first things that are taken advantage of, that we liquidate when we do not have savings and emergency hits.
Yeah. Okay. That makes sense. Okay. So, what are some of the top mistakes that you're seeing people do with their money?
Some of the top mistakes I'm seeing folks do with their money right now, I think it's just not tracking.
Yeah.
A lot of people would blame it on frivolous spending, but what I've noticed is people only frivolous spend because they think they got it.
Hmm.
Once we do a budget with folks, it is crazy to see how people change from their first or second session to their third or fourth session. Because during that first and second, it's kind of discovery. We're figuring out what your spending habits are, and a lot of discovery for them as well. So, like,
Right.
they'll tell us what their budget is, and we go looking at bank statements. It's completely different. So when people see, like, what? I spent $400 on shopping last month. The
Yeah.
next time we meet, they're like, "Oh, Robert, I only spent $50 on shopping this month."
Yeah.
They've already fixed the problem. It's just they thought they were doing good, and it's like, "Oh,
Right.
I didn't know." But I think so, and that speaks to a bigger issue, which is not necessarily frivolous spending, but the underlying problem is that they didn't track it, or they didn't look at it monthly.
Now, I write down, what I'm getting, in my check, and then I deduct on my expenses. And that's how I'm tracking, but I don't think that's enough. You actually have to set aside certain amounts for anything that's outside of like a recurring expense. You have to, I'm going to spend this much on entertainment, this much on groceries, whatever the case is. So I've been thinking about getting one of those apps that will help you really like, because I think I'm the kind of person who needs a visual to look at.
Mm-hmm.
And does your company ever recommend any apps that are good for those types of activities?
Absolutely. So there are a few of them out there. I always say pop around on a few of them
Mhm.
because they all work differently. And one big thing for budgeting, personal finances is like a thumbprint, is different for every single person. So just because the method works for me doesn't mean it's going to work for you. So I always tell people, play around with a few different apps to see what actually works. But one of the ones I like is Rocket Money. I will say Rocket Money does charge. So that's
Oh,
the only thing I do not like about them. Last time I checked, I think the minimum they did was like $4 a month.
mhm.
But the catch to them doing $4 a month, you had to pay an annual amount. So like instead of doing $4 each month, you would pay that total amount for a year at one time.
Well,
So
yeah, I guess if you look at it that way, then okay, the money's already gone. You're not, it's you do the one payment and then you're done with it
yeah.
if you choose to pay for it.
Yeah, but with Rocket Money, you can set up different budgets for things. It can connect to your bank account, and it can also monitor your subscriptions for you, so you can cancel them from there. So
Right.
that's just one. There are tons of other ones. Actually, my favorite one just recently got canceled, or like they dismantled it. It was through Intuit, the same
Okay.
company that has TurboTax, but it
Oh,
was called Mint, but they just got rid of Mint.
I've heard of
That
that.
was
Yeah.
my absolute favorite one, and Mint was free. So I mean, obviously, free stuff they don't keep around too long.
Yeah.
I had it for years before they got rid of it.
Yeah. I'm gonna look into that. I don't believe in having to pay to track your money either, but the company has to make money too. So
Yeah,
I'll
I'm
look
the
into
same way. That's why I always give that caveat to it. Like I do like Rocket Money, however, they do charge. Like I I used to use apps a lot when I first started budgeting. That's also the other funny thing about personal finances. As you grow and change, so will your finances.
yes.
And even as a professional, I had to kind of go back to the drawing board. My finances got out of whack with the system I was using, and I was like, you know what? Let's just start over. Let's redo this. And I went back to the old school method of just pen and paper. So I use my iPad. And I have a folder on my iPad with all my budget docs, and I write out my budget every month. And it's just that has been working since I started doing it. And it's more tedious. You gotta like plan out time and be intentional about it. but it's free,
Right.
and it works for me. It works at least for my lifestyle right now.
Yeah. And like you say, everybody's different. I'm kind of a pen and paper person as well. But I do want to look into apps to see if that might be like a visual aid that might be really like something like readily at my fingertips instead of having to go back to my notebook, which might be on my desk or might be at work. I can just have something, with me. So yeah. So it's tax season. We all just got through hopefully filing our taxes. And
Yeah,
hopefully a lot of us will get a refund. And I think when one gets a relatively sizable refund, let's say $1,000 to $2,000, it's kind of like, what should I do with it? Should I go on a vacation? Should I put it in savings? Should I pay down some, credit cards? What are some suggestions that you would make to someone? And everybody's situation is different. Let's say this person, they're not in crisis.
yeah.
Um, and they have several options of what they could do. They could do savings, pay down some debt, or other. What would you suggest to move that person forward financially?
We always say save some, spend some, pay off some debt.
Hmm. Yeah.
So not necessarily in that order, but I would start with saving some, then paying off debt, and then spending some. And the only reason we absolutely put in spend some, because we're humans. We know that if you get a windfall, you get some a big chunk of money that you didn't plan on, or that you knew, let's say even you did plan on, it's a big chunk of money. You're gonna go and have you a nice meal, or you're gonna do something with your family. We know it. We're human. So the issue comes into play when we do those things without a plan, and we just go and randomly do it. But if when we say, hey, I know I'm going to do this, so let's just plan to do it. So then once you give yourself that amount, so let's say they get back $2,000, they may put 500 or 1,000 in savings, put 500 towards credit card debt, and
Mhm.
maybe spend the last five on, like, okay, well, let's take a trip to Branson or something. Let's,
Yeah.
I don't know, just something simple for them or their family. Or they might even change the amounts. Like, let's say they're simple people, like, hey, we just like a good movie and a dinner. Like, okay, well, maybe they just might do $150. Then the rest of that is split up between debt and savings. So, but it's just about being intentional. And the biggest thing is, as soon as you file your taxes and you know what you're getting back, make your plan then. Have it all mapped out. So many people try to wait till the money hit their account. It is much harder to do when the money is right there in your hand,
Yeah.
because it just leaves your hand so instantly. So
Yeah.
once you make out that plan before you get the money, when that money hit, before you even touch it, just go back to look at that plan. Okay, this much money goes here. Let me take this out, put this here. Then you just following the recipe at that point.
And I love that because you take into account that money is emotional,
Mm-hmm.
particularly if you've been on a tight budget or if you've just been without for a long time. That's why we always hear about, athletes who start making a lot of money and just burn through it all because it's a deprivation mindset. So money is very emotional. So having a plan can temper that emotion in that moment, and you already know what you're going to do as opposed to acting kind of on the fly.
Yeah. We so one of the things, this is one of my favorite quotes. Personal finance is 20% knowledge, 80% behavior.
Yes.
So if I taught you everything there was to know about money, and you became a money expert, that is only 20% of what you need to succeed in finances. The rest of that is the 6 inches between your ears, and
Yeah.
how that thing operates and what you're gonna do when the money hits your hand.
Yeah. Because it's like it's a psychological emotional thing, money. It just there can be so much that's tied to money. There can be what your family told you, what you observed, what other people. It's just a lot that goes into money that I don't think we always talk about it. And I love this conversation because you are talking about money in a very practical way that your average person making an average salary can get something from. So I love that. So
Thank you.
you're welcome. So, a lot of financial experts, we talked about investing, we talked about saving, but how do you make that work if you're literally just making enough money, to cover your expenses? And expenses have gone up so much over the past year, 6 months. So, what do you
Mm-hmm.
suggest to someone who wants to start a savings account, but they feel like I just don't have enough?
So one thing I always suggest, folks, and a lot of people like this answer, and a lot of people don't, but it's the reality. And I'm gonna give an example of how I use this and how it worked for me. That's the kind of teacher I am. I will never tell somebody to do anything that I haven't done or I wouldn't do myself. So most stuff I'm gonna teach is gonna be from example. But we say that once you determine that you are underwater, you have more expenses than you do income.
Mhm.
There are only three ways to solve it: increase your income, decrease your debt, or a mixture of the two.
Yeah.
Those are the only ways to fix that problem. So either go find, uh, get innovative and find a side hustle or a part time job, or maybe even look and search for a higher paying primary job, or figure out a way to decrease your debt, which sometimes can be difficult. Some people use windfalls like taxes to
Mhm.
do. But my favorite out of those three is the last one, which is a mixture of the two. So the example I give you is before my daughter was born, she was born in 2019. Uh, I thought I had it all figured out. Like, okay, I've been in finances for a few years. I've planned for this, I've planned for that, and we had money in different spots, and it was looking good. One thing I hadn't planned for, and it's just because I was a new parent, I didn't know daycare. I had no clue how expensive daycare was.
Yeah.
So we went to see our first place, and the lady, I'll never forget, she's like, "Oh, none of our parents pay more than $75 a week." And I was like, "Ma'am, you said that like that's doing me a favor. That is extremely expensive." But all my friends who had kids was like, "Oh, that's actually a good number." And
Yeah.
I'm like, "Oh my," I'm like, "I didn't realize how expensive this was." So now we're in a pickle, and our expenses have officially exceeded our income. So we had two car loans, one of which was less than others, probably like $4,000 or $5,000. Ryan was due to be here in about 5, 6 months. So what I determined, I said, okay, if I can get a part-time job to pay $1,000 a month on this car, I could pay off that car, and then we could afford daycare.
Mhm.
So when you do that, you have to figure out what works for you. I always get something that works with the primary job. So because I work with people during the day, I didn't want to get something that was part time where I worked with people because then I'd be burnt out doing my
Yeah.
day job snapping on people. So it's like, okay, well, let's not get another job working with people. So I got a job like doing overnight stocking in a retail store.
Mhm.
It was easy, it was mindless. I come in, get the box of jeans,
People leave you alone.
yeah, people leave you alone, and then you just mind your business for the next 5, 6 hours. The second part to that is knowing your time period,
Mhm.
because no matter how you shape it, it's typically gonna suck. More work has nobody ever's been like, yay, I get to work more. So I always tell clients, go into this knowing I am sacrificing this time for
Yes.
something greater than
Yes.
this. And just understand what your timeline is. I knew once this car was paid off, I was through with this job. I
Yeah.
absolutely hated it. I felt like a zombie, but
Mhm.
I was making that $1,000 a month. And as long as I hit that $1,000, I was paying it towards that car.
Yeah.
My daughter was born in January. We had that car paid off in December. She started going to daycare in February, and everything, the transition was smooth.
I
So
love it.
that was the mixture of the two. I increased my income
Yeah.
to decrease my debt. Once that car was paid off, we were good. I was able to quit the job and life went back to normal. Now, not everybody's story is a Cinderella story like that, where it's like, I just had to work my butt off for 5 months and that was it. Some people, it may be 2 or 3 years of you doing that, but
Yeah.
that's why you understand your timeline in the beginning so you prepare your mind for that haul.
Last year, I got a freelance opportunity that paid really well, and I only had to do it for about a month. And it was a rough month. I had just started a new job, then I had this other job that I had to do, and everything had to be done by a certain time. It was a freelance opportunity, and I used half of the money to pay some things down or off, and I'm using the other half for just a mini vacation. And I had to keep telling myself when I was so tired, after a new job, because a new job, you're even more exhausted because you're learning.
Yeah.
You're learning the culture, you're learning your job, and it's just a lot. And then coming home and having to work another job, but I would say to myself, it's only a month. You can do it. And then focusing on the goals, because I hadn't taken a vacation in so long, and I knew, I need to get away. I needed something to look forward to. I needed something to refresh myself. And that's what got me through. So a month isn't, 4 or 5 months like you did, but what you said, it makes a lot of sense. Having that timeline in front of you and knowing this is temporary. You can do it if it's temporary. You don't have to, do this for years. Some people might have to, and that is, obviously a lot harder. And I'm sure we know plenty of people who have two and three jobs and they're absolutely exhausted. But
Yeah,
we're in an economy where for so many people one job, particularly if you have a family, it's just not enough, whether you have to do it for a
yeah.
few months or a few years. So that makes a lot of sense.
I always say everybody should have some type of side hustle they can fall back on that they can control,
Yeah.
like a hairdresser or a some type of consultant for literally anything, or like a tutorer, or like, oh, I do piano lessons on the side. Some type of income that you control,
Yeah.
so that when you have those months that it's hard, it's like, oh, well, I know I can retwist some locks. Hey, you can get on Facebook, drum up $150 from just telling people, hey, I can retwist locks this weekend. So everybody should have some type of income like that.
Being
Obviously, it should be
resourceful.
around your specialty or something that
Yeah.
you're naturally good in, so you would
Like
you would
bake
want to
or,
do it.
I know a lot
Yeah,
of people crochet or they bake really well or just, something that you're really good at. Um, Being resourceful, I think, is key in keeping the money flowing,
yes.
particularly, these days. So I want to go back to talk about credit. How important is one's credit score?
It's very important. So we always say you should be having credit when you don't need it, not needing it when you don't have it.
Yeah.
So because it's one of those things that it takes time to build. So if
Mhm.
you're waiting till when you need it, you already behind the curve.
It takes
And
time to build, but it takes no time to destroy.
exactly. So another thing we say, we tell clients this all the time. Credit is a game that was created specifically for you to lose.
Mhm.
And it's just like any other game. A lot of people get so caught up in the details. Well, why is it like this? Or why is it like that? And I used to tell them, I don't make those rules. And unfortunately, they don't make it easy for us to understand them.
Yeah.
However, my job is to help you understand how to navigate that rule so that you can excel at the game.
Yeah. Yeah. I've read stories online about people who've paid off their car, but then their credit went down. It's just weird things that happen, that things that you would think would boost your credit.
Yeah. So
Just
yeah, it's made for you to lose. So essentially, the biggest things in credit is paying things on time. That's the absolute most important thing for your credit. Second is how you use your revolving accounts. So credit cards, charge accounts, or lines of credit. And then the last one is length of credit history. Those are the three major ones. And length of credit history is what hurts people when they pay things off, because when you pay an account off, it closes. When it
yeah.
closes, all the history you created goes with it. So it's a good thing. You look at it like, I paid the car off. I did what I was supposed to do. But in the credit world, it's like, but you have no more history now. So everything we could have looked at is like it's closed now. So that hurts the score a little bit. I always say keep in mind it's only 15%. So it's gonna hurt, and it's gonna hurt a little bit right now. But as time gets older, the best way to combat that is with revolving accounts. So it is good to have at least one credit card. It is bad to not know how to use credit cards. So do not get one if you don't know how to use it. Please
Yeah.
consult Prosperity Connection first, and we'll teach you how to use a credit card to be successful. But it is good to have one for your credit, because
Right.
credit cards don't close unless you or the credit grantor decides to close it.
Mhm.
So with those staying open for as long as they do, length of credit history goes off average length of credit history. So if I have a car loan that I've had for 5 years that I pay off, but I have a credit card that I've had for 20 years, then I won't really feel that 15% for real.
Okay. So what if you're doing well, you're making your payments on time, et cetera, and then you get offered a credit increase? What do
Mm-hmm.
you think about people accepting it?
Credit is, remember, this is a game made for you to lose. Credit increases are fine if you are following the rules of the credit card. Keep in mind they are also trying to get you to lose the credit card game, which
Mhm.
is their goal is to get you in massive amounts of debt that you cannot pay them back and are indebted to them forever.
Hmm.
So if they giving you a credit increase, you got to understand it was done intentionally. It was not because they like you. It was not because you're a good customer. It was intentionally done. Matter of fact, one of my oldest credit cards, the first time I ever got a credit increase, guess what day it was?
Christmas?
My birthday.
That was my other guess. Yeah.
And it was, I laughed my butt off. I said, y'all are so slick. I was like, they like, oh, it's his birthday. Let's give him an extra, a couple $100. Because they know, okay, well, people are more likely to spend a lot of money on their birthdays or like around Christmas
Yeah.
time. So it's cool if you play the game.
Yeah.
Knowing the game and knowing the rules. Whoops, I'm sorry. Knowing the
Okay.
game and knowing the rules, and as long as you do right with the credit cards, which essentially we tell people, keeping your credit cards between 1% and 6% usage is what will help you in the game. So essentially, if you have, let's say, $1,000, you want to use like $10 and just keeping it there. I know it sounds crazy, like, well, they gave me the 1,000. Why? That's the game. It was meant for you to lose. So it looks bad when you use up a lot of the limit, the credit you have available. But
Yeah.
it looks good when you use a little bit. Here's the funny part. It looks better when you use a little bit versus when you don't use it at all.
Yeah. Because they
So,
want you to use it,
mhm.
but you just can't go over a certain amount or else you'll start getting penalized.
What I always tell people is take a small subscription you have, throw it on your credit card. The subscription will charge that credit card every month.
Yeah.
Set automatic payments up from your bank account. Then
Yeah.
throw that credit card in the back of your drawer and never look at it again. It's
Yeah.
working your credit in the background because that subscription is going to charge every month. To the
Right.
credit card company, you using that card every month. Then that
Yeah.
card is going to take that subscription amount from your bank account on the payment date every month. So it's paid on time and it's, the card is getting used and it's not getting used no more than that 1 to 6%.
Practical tips. I love it. So, are there any other tips that people need to know about improving their credit score? Like, what is there one thing that people can do, or what if there's one thing that people can start doing if that's one of their goals is getting their credit score up?
First thing, and I'm only saying it because it's the biggest thing, so it's more of a reiteration. Uh, Paying everything on time. And a lot of people would say, well, not everything reports to credit. What we found is that when you get in a habit of being late, you start to get a little lackadaisical about other things and
Yeah,
start to become okay with things being late.
yeah,
And we see it happen so often where somebody's like, oh, this cell phone bill that don't technically report to credit, I started being late on that, and then I started being late on this. And then you look back, your mortgage is late. Now we got a problem. Let's turn your credit up. So we
yeah,
always just say pay everything on time. If someone looks at their credit score today and they see that there are things reporting late, before they even ask for help, just go ahead and start working on getting them things on time. Because that's gonna be the first thing we're gonna tell you to do. Because that's, as long as that's late every month, everything we doing is counteractive. Because once a new month hit, there's another hit to your credit. So we got to get it on time. The second thing I would say is for folks who do not have credit at all, there's a product called a credit builder loan. These are from banks and credit unions. And essentially, it's called a loan, but it's more like a savings plan. It's meant to help you build credit. You go and start the loan, and unlike a regular loan, a traditional loan, I sign papers, you give me money, I pay you back every month.
mhm,
Credit builder loans don't work that way. You sign papers, they don't give you anything, and then you start making payments. So let's say the payments are $52. You pay $52 every month. $50 goes in your savings account, $2 goes to them. And
that
every month they do
great.
that. And you do
I've
that
not
for
heard
12.
that.
Uh-huh.
I've not heard, that's amazing because you're paying yourself and
Yep.
building your credit.
And they'll report that you're making those payments every month. And then, like I said, for 12 months, you've been paying that $52 to them. They keep $2, $50 go in your account. Let's say you do that for 12 months under a contract with them. By the end of that 12 months, you will have 12 months of positive payment history on your credit report,
I love
and
it.
you will have $600 in your savings account.
That's amazing. That's a tip I have never heard, and that's really, really practical that a lot of people could probably do.
Yeah.
I mean, sometimes $50 a month, the extra $50 a month, it is a lot. It can be a lot, but I think it's doable for a lot of people.
Yeah. What I've seen a lot of people doing this back when I worked at the bank, they'll do a credit builder loan, put 600 or like $700 in their savings, and then do an auto draft for the loan from their savings. And then the loan is just literally taking $52 out of the savings, putting $50 back in the savings.
Okay.
And it's literally just like the money is washing itself in this process. Like, oh, they take the money out for the payment, but the money is going right back in my savings. So that way they don't even have to think about paying it. It's just like they're not saving anything because it's just the same amount of money, but they don't have to worry about making that payment each month either.
Right. Right. Wow. Okay. That's great to know. So my last question is, dealing with financial stress can be stressful. It
Mm-hmm.
can cause a lot of anxiety. It could even manifest, physically when you're just under financial straits. Coming to Prosperity Connection, coming to someone like you is one of the first things people can probably do to start to manage that. What are some other things that people can do to just feel better about their financial situation, particularly if they're in the process of working on it?
I think one of the first things, the thing that stress people a lot about money is they don't look at it,
Mm-hmm.
and they're just like they try to treat it like, okay, if I don't pay attention to it, it don't exist. I think once you face it, you look that monster in the eye, you realize it's not as big as a monster as you thought. And sometimes it is the accountability of having a coach to take that journey with you. And they're saying, it's okay. We've seen this before, and somebody helping you. But a lot of it is really them just looking at it. And it's like, oh, okay. And then once the coach helps them come up with a plan, it's like, oh, this is not bad at all. And we literally see the stress and the tension in their lives go down in such a short period of time simply because they've looked at it. So I would say give yourself grace. Understand we all have a journey. It didn't take you a short amount of time to get in that situation. It's not going to take a jump, skip, and a hop to get out of it.
Yeah.
So be ready for the journey, but also understand that you're not the first person that dealt with what you dealt with. Give yourself some grace and just take a look at it.
Yeah. And I remember being in a situation where I was just so afraid to open bills. I was just so afraid. I'd see it and I'd feel the anxiety. And I had to be brave and really start looking at it and digging my way out. And, thank goodness I've been able, to continue working on that. But it was hard. It was a hard moment to be like, all right, we got to get serious about, the situation.
Yeah.
And it's so challenging. So many people right now are unemployed or underemployed. It makes it so much harder to even believe that there's somewhere you can even start.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really challenging.
Also, there are a lot of communities too, like joining a community of people who are like you. Like I know Facebook has like the broke black girl. Um, like that's like a whole community of people who just empower each other. Prosperity Connections building that same community around our clients and for them to lean on each other because we realize community is important. But just kind of rubbing shoulders with people who are where you are makes you feel less shameful about where you
Yeah.
are, but also more encouraged about where you could go.
Yes, because there can be so much shame about money, about just not having enough. And that's
Mm-hmm.
something that we need to break that stigma. It
Yeah,
just it just is what it is. And you just have to work at making it better. But in that process, be proud of the progress that you're making as opposed to feeling shameful that you're even in the situation.
yeah.
Yeah.
We had a client that at the time we thought was not making progress, and we were just like, man, we've been working for a while, but we don't really see them progressing or changing. And that client leaving told us, they say, this is the longest I've gone without ever having my car repoed. And we were like, oh wow, okay. So that really opened our eyes as coaches. Like sometimes progress is not tangible. It's not
Yeah.
something you can see or measure, but just her being able to or him, girl, guy, whoever, being able to pay their things on time
Mhm.
could be progress in itself. So your journey is your journey, and Is how whatever pace you move, and as long as you're moving forward, it really don't matter.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, Robert, it has been such a pleasure talking with you during April Financial Literacy Month. I love just the practical tips that you have offered. I love the fact that you talked about the emotional aspect of money and just giving yourself grace while you move through the process of moving forward financially. I want to thank you so much for your time, particularly under circumstances. And it's been a great conversation.
Thank you. It was awesome. Thank you for having me so much.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.